Hey campers, George here, back in the, well, what's left of the man cave. But things are looking up. Finally, getting some movement on this whole thing. Oh boy, not a good time. Anywho, looking at these two guys. Yep, campers, Euro campers. Huh, interesting history. Let's check them out. So I was going through my stuff again. Man, dealing with this whole thing all the time is frustrating and stressful. Anywho, got these. These I discovered in my to-do box in the Euro section. There are two campers from these guys. Jowika, something like that. Anywho, very interesting history, and I suspect we may even be able to figure out how old they are because I found a bunch of info on them. So I'll show you one of them. Actually, I'll show you them both. You can see the differences, and then I want to clean up one. The other one needs a little bit more work, and I just don't have the tools with me right now. Together, see that? Same company, slightly different, same tools, tank stamps a little different, handles are different, and a couple of other things. One, well, needs some serious work, so we'll look at this one first. In pretty good shape, except, oops, look at that. Now, I might be able to fix that by filing down the blades to get, as close to these away as I can, and then put an edge back on it. It's going to reduce it a bit. Not much we can do about that. Got to get rid of them nicks. You can't have them in the blade. The other stuff is in pretty good condition. And as you can see, it's your typical, well, camper, right? And like I said, it's from these guys. Here's the tank stamp here, okay? I'll put it up here. Now, it's an interesting tank stamp because it's very distinctive. It's got that bird on it, and then it says Jowika Island, okay? Now, I thought, it's an Irish company, right? Well, not so much. Originally, they were from Germany, in, yeah, you guessed, Solingen, okay? No surprise there. You know what? Let's look at it a little closer. We can have a real close look at it and see what needs to be done. And while I'm doing that, I'll tell you some of the history. It's interesting, okay? And you can see it's in pretty good shape. There's a couple of things here. See that? Let me get this thing to focus. Hold on. How's that? It's a little better. You can see on the badge here, if you look carefully, it says Camper's Knife, Republic of Ireland. And now on this tank stamp, it doesn't say that, but on some of them they do. Oh, it does say it. My bad. And some of them will just say Ireland, some will say Republic of Ireland. And like I said, interesting history. They're originally German. How that came about was in Solingen in 1928, Johann and Wilhelm, these guys, don't know how to pronounce that, Kleinwetsters, something like that, started a company, and they called it Jowika actually. And what they did was they used their names, basically the initials of their names, and then the business side in Germany, how you explain a company. And that's how they came up with the name. And that was in 1928. 2 years later, they were acquired by Eugene Weber and Eitenbach, and they were a bigger company, and they added a little bit more to their knives. They went with things like hunting knives and added razors as well. On this knife, look at the jigging. That's a clue to age-wise. That'll give us a clue on just roughly when this was made. I'll show you the other one while I'm telling you about the history. This guy's a little beat up and it's a little different. Show you the tang stamp here. See it there? Look how different it looks. Here's the close-up. And you can see right away the handle. It's different compared to this guy. More rounded, the whole thing. This one's flat. You see how it's flat there? This is rounded. More what we used to in a clamshell. Now, if you look on the ends here, the clamshell, it doesn't have the clips. This is the newer style clamshell or a modification of it. The little clips are inside the well. That's how you release it. Otherwise, if you look at the two knives, they basically the same thing, except, yep, this one has an awl, this one has a second blade. So I thought that was interesting. Certainly, it's the same company, and I think, they both say Ireland, so they were made in Ireland. Now, when they were bought by Eugene Weber, they actually opened an Irish plant in Listowel. I think it's pronounced Listowel, this way, in Ireland in 1960. The reason they did that, interestingly, lower labor costs and less rigid export and import, okay, than in Germany. As a company, you're always looking at ways to save money, and that's how they did it. In 1978, that man, Albert M. Bayer, familiar? Yep. Imperial, Schrade, and they wanted to use this for the same reasons. Lower costs and things like that. And they used it to make their lower end knives. Now, which one these are is not that easy to figure out, because dating, they didn't have a lot of information of when they made what and why. But things like the handle material and whether it was Germany or Ireland on the tang stamp, little things like that could give you a rough outline of how old these knives are. So did a little bit of research, but in the meantime I want to show you this one. Now if you look at this one, you see that? That is the spring. Watch. If I push on it, pops out this side. That whole spring is bent. So there's nothing on these two tools. Okay? There's no pressure at all. To fix that, you're either going to have to replace or rebend the spring. Rebending will depend on why it's bent. It may have split and ready to fall apart. It's not all the way through. You can see there's no cracks or anything, but it's really badly bent. Never seen that. Would have to straighten it or find one that'll fit, which I thought, it's something I'm not going to be able to do right now with all my tools being elsewhere. After Imperial Schrade purchased them, the Ireland one, by the way, they still had the German one, which the German plant closed in 1984. But the Irish plant closed in the 2000s, about a year and a half before Imperial and Schrade closed down their main offices. So there's a little bit of history about it. And then I thought, well, Okay, good information. It tells me that because they both were Irish, they were there for they were made in a certain period. The German ones, which would say Solingen, Germany, that sort of thing on them, on the tank stamps, would be 1928 to 1984. The island ones will be 1960 to the 2000s. So these are somewhere there, 1960s to the 2000s. So obviously in that period, they changed hands because Imperial bought them, and they changed the way they did things. So looking up a little bit more and fiddling with the dates and things like that, here's what I found out. Now, if you remember, the German guys made hunting knives. They started to do that sort of thing and became pretty popular with that sort of style, fixed blade knives. And they talked about wood and bone or stag handles would make those knives pre-1950s. And then they talked about molded shell and plastic or jigged composite, which is kind of sort of like this, except not so sure they mean the molded plastic. And I still think they were talking about the fixed blades. So those would be 1950s to 1970s. So if you have one of these guys fixed blade, that'll give you an idea of how to date them. Then they came out with jig Delrin, or just solid smooth synthetic plastic, and that was from the 1970s to the 2000s. So, you know, that'll give you an idea of how to how to date them. Now, just from that data, I'm going to say these guys are from that last period, which would be the 1970s to the 2000s. Now, if you remember, in 1978, Schrade Imperial acquired them, and I think these are from after that period. If not, I would say that was prior and this was after, but I'm not sure. I'm just going to go with, well, before the 2000s, and you know, they were made after they opened the plant in Ireland, which was in the 1960s to the 2000s. They're somewhere there. Now, I could look a little bit further in, but I was like, I need to move on. There's only so much time I have. So that'll give you a rough idea on how to figure out how old your Jowika knife is. Now, I can tell you that the fixed blades are way more popular. They made a lot more of these, but the fixed blades became really popular after the Second World War. So big collectors, along with people like Puma and things like that. So there's that. I really like this guy. The blades on this guy are in great shape. All the tools and everything. But unfortunately, that's spring. So before I do anything with this guy, I've got to fix this seesaw spring. So we can't do much with that, which means we have to deal with the other guy. And as always, I call these sharp and shinies. So first thing you got to do is make them shine and then sharpen it. And while we're making it shine, we're going to have to fix this issue, which is going to mean a little bit of filing and reducing this area of the blade. And you can see it's pretty deep on that blade, but we don't have to totally get everything away. We just need to come down a little bit here and a little bit more there. So this is going to be a more distinctive drop off, probably shorten the blade a little bit, but nothing we can do about that. And then we can sharpen them up, but we're going to make him shiny, and we've got to fix this. Now, I have a couple of ideas here. If you look at the handle, it's a little short on the ends, on both sides actually. They weren't their most expensive models, and I think I need to try and make that less obvious. So first thing I want to do is just get that glued together and then fix the blade and then make it sharp and shiny. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to concentrate on this guy. So the first thing we want to do is I want to glue that handle, and I want to just clean up the edges here so there's no rust, because I'm going to try something to darken these missing pieces here. I'm not really going to, well, I'll fill them in with super glue, but I'm going to put a black background and then put the super glue on top of that, and maybe it won't look as obvious. So I have a plan. I'm going to clean up these areas, get all that rust and everything off. I do have some wet dry 1000 grit sandpaper. Try and clean that up, clean it off. Then I got me a black Sharpie, and I want to fill in these gaps with black. Let that dry. Glue this, and going to use me some super duper Loctite glue. Not the gel. You don't want to use gel on this. It never dries hard. You want the regular liquid. And let's see what happens, and then we'll go from there. Well, that's the plan. Allegedly. I need a heavier grit, but I don't have any. But persistence pays off. Oh, wow. Oh, geez. That's a lot. Okay, got this done on the edges of the handle. Needed to let the glue dry. Now I'm going to attack the rest and clean it up, and hopefully it'll look shiny at least, and then we'll sharpen it. So, you know the story. We'll start with some 500 and work our way through all the tools and everything, and go up to 10,000 and mothers. Wait, I lied. I got to fix that, which means I have to go to the shed to put, actually I think I have my little vise in a box. I'm going to grab that, put this in here, and let's clean this edge off. It's really... I think that's about as much as I want to go. It's really flattened the blade out, but nothing we can do about that. I didn't want to take too much off here because it would shorten the blade too much. But maybe bring it up a little bit here to give it more of the spear point look. Let me bring it in tighter even more. Now I've got to clean all the nail nicks out. And if you look right there, that is the new style that they came off with the clamshell. They click in there and that's your clip that holds it on. It's actually inside the well. Different. Preferred the old style though. So here we are at 400. It's starting to shine a little bit. So now we go 1,000, 3,000, 10,000 mothers. I'll show you when I get to 10,000. Hate to bore you with all that whole repeating again. Need to clean this up a little bit more though. And here we are, all the way through 10,000 and then mothers. Turned out better than I thought it would. These, not so much. But it'll do, it'll keep it together, get rid of those gaps. That didn't work as well as I thought it would, but what do? Shiny, now we got to make it sharp. Going to use two things. On this guy, just going to use the field sharpener because it's just too small for my sharpener. And then we got to get this one done from scratch. So what I've got to do here is I've got to get an edge on it at the right angle. So I'm going to start off with about 240 to get this into some sort of edge. And then we'll go up, we'll move up a couple of spots, maybe 600 and then 1,000. And then we'll strop and see how we're doing. I want to go with 20. There is a fine tune on it here. Come on, there we go. Gonna mark it and let's get some sort of starter edge on it. You can hear how rough it is. Whew. We're basically starting off with a 90-degree here that we have to get down to our 20 and then clean it up. Okay, I've got a pretty big edge here. I don't want to do any more on this side, and it's consistent, so I'm going to flip it over, do the same on this side, and let's see if we're getting an edge. Certainly you want it centered. Okay, we've got that edge again, and I can actually feel a peel underneath. See if I can get in closer for you. Can you see along here? You can see the filings, and I can actually feel an edge. So we're good there. We have that edge. We've got a little bit of a peel. Now you want to clean this whole thing up. I like to use these to get the build-up off of these. Alright, so now we're at 600. Let's see if we can clean that edge up a little bit. And here you can see the edge is a little cleaner, and I can still feel a peel here. It's not as obvious because it's a lot thinner. Now I'm going to flip it over and do the same thing. All I'm doing is cleaning up that edge now. We've got our angle. We just want to make it as smooth as possible. Nice clean edge. Allegedly. And I can feel the peel all the way along there, so we're good here. Now I'm going to go to 1000. Whoops, this one. And you'll hear how different it sounds. See that? That's the difference between 1000 and 600. Let's have a look at it. Here you can see it's a lot cleaner along the edges here. I can still feel the peel, which I got to get rid of. And we'll do that by stropping. I don't feel any peel now, so let's see how we did. here goes nothing. I think that'll work. Let's clean up the little guy quickly with the field sharpener. Whoops. A little bit too much, but it's not going to hurt. You see. Start with the heavier grit and then smooth it off. I don't think it needs that much. It just needs a clean. And I'm horrible at this. It's the reason I got that. These are handy when you're out trudging and you plan to do whittling or whatever. It's a quick cleanup for your blade, he says. Let's give it a quick strike. Okay, we got a good edge on there for a pen. It'll work for me, for what I need it for. It's not perfect, like I said. I'm horrible with these. I need more practice. And you can, it's like using a stone, so the more you practice, the better you're going to get at it. And we have the bail. I like these knives. They're not bad. They're fairly old and interesting history. So there you go. Thinking about this guy, I almost took it apart to see if I could straighten the spring here. But I think it's cracked. It's really bad for it to be that much out. I think I'm going to need a new spring. So I'm going to keep this for when I have all my tools together. So there you are, campers. Here it is here. Turned out okay. Not my best work. Fixing the handles, I just wanted to fill in those gaps. It worked out kind of okay. I think I'd do it differently next time. Just don't have my stuff that I normally have, which is kind of an issue. But what do? Still looks nice and clean. Sharpened it up, oiled it, so we got some snap going here. Not so much on that main blade, but that's kind of expected when you have an old knife like that. That's the most used part. So I put some oil in there. It's probably got to work it a little bit more. You can see there's a lot of goop coming out of there. So hopefully as we work it, it'll get better. But very cool. I like these knives. Jowika has some interesting history. I didn't know that Imperial was involved with it. And the fact that they even came from Germany, I thought it was Irish all the way. Allegedly, it isn't. So there you go, nice little camper. Nice little one I could just add to my collection of campers. This obviously is probably the younger of the two. So in good condition. You know, the blades, the tools and everything were good. Now this one here, like I said, you can see how the problem here is. We got a little seesaw going here. This is the second time. It's twice in a row where I've pulled knives out to show you guys and realized I don't have the tools to do it. I would really like to take this apart. It is a clamshell that always makes me nervous. But this is the newer style. It has the clips on the inside, not at the ends. A little bit more forgiving. So that's always a good thing. I was actually just thinking about taking it off and trying to take the cover off and try to file the middle pin here, squeeze it, see if I can get it out, because it's just that spring is just on the middle pin, because it rocks on it as you open and close either side. Just so that you know, this effect here that we're seeing here is probably caused by continually opening both sides on the same spring. And you know, the spring's like this, and it's designed that, you know, it'll tension like that, like that, like that, and then suddenly you're doing this, and you're putting a lot of pressure right here. And I suspect that that's what's happened on the spring here. I think it's split down there. And even if I can get it out, I packed all my spares. Anyway, what do you do? So it'll be another one going back into the project box. To be honest, I'm looking for more out of my projects, and this is what I'm looking for. If I don't have a spring, I've got to find one that's close and maybe modify it so that it'll work with it. I'm even thinking, you know, these are pretty beat up, of rehandling it, just doing a complete new handle on it, maybe wood or bone or even G10 on it, all the way across, no bolsters, and it'll be something different. So there's that, and that's what I'm looking at doing. Unfortunately, that's all on hold because we're in the middle of an empty man cave. So there's that. And that reminds me, a lot of comments saying, where's Mary? Is everything okay? Mary is fine. She took a while to adjust. I took her with me to California. I wanted her to get settled there. And she struggled a little bit, but now she's settled down. And I asked for a picture. Just send me a picture of Mary so I can show you. Well, the one they sent is this one. Yep, Mary in her box. That's how you guys see her most. I thought it was pretty funny that they sent that. I had actually put that box in my room, which is empty basically, and some of her stuff with familiar smells and that, so she could feel comfortable. Well, apparently she really got comfortable with the box, because I say she spends a lot of time sitting there peeking over the top and watching what's going on. Other than that, she's getting comfortable. She's fine. So Mary is fine. She is there getting the room ready for me for when I could get out there and making sure everything's ready. Allegedly. You know bosses, they don't do nothing. Anywho, just wanted to update you on that. So there you go. You will be safe out there, especially when you're playing with the knives and things like that. I was working on this knife using that pick, a very sharp pick, and it slipped, it caught me on the hand here, and not good. So be aware of that. I had everything taped up, just didn't expect to slip like that. That's why they call it an accident. Just say. Don't forget, like, share, subscribe. You know the story. Pretty sure I'm gonna be back. I just went and had lunch with a subscriber, Paul, long-time subscriber, member, and he brought me a box of goodies. We went and had lunch with Keith and Laura and Paul and his wife. So look for that, something different. It's always good to meet the subs and meet you guys and talk to you, and we talked knives and we talked about all sorts of things. They asked me all those questions. Where you from? What you do? Why you here? Who was there? What's going on? You know how it goes. And we had a nice long 2.5 hour lunch, and very nice to meet them. Very nice people. That'll be up next, so look for it. Thanks for watching. Always appreciate it, and we'll see you again soon.